everybody, it's Miss Brenda or Miss I, depending on what you like to call me. Either's fine, as always. So, we're going to be working on a Reggie Laurent drawing or painting today, depending on which media you end up choosing. Your choices are going to either be acrylic paint, so a wet medium, or colored pencil, a dry medium. Traditionally, Reggie Laurent uses paint, but colored pencil is also a great choice on black paper because it's always vibrant and colorful, just like his work. So the first thing we need is our black paper. It's going to either be black construction or mixed media paper so that it could take our paint. All right, so first things first, we need to decide what silhouette or multiple silhouettes, if you choose, we are going to be doing on the paper. So my advice would be to grab your iPads or devices that take photos, and you're going to take a couple of posed pictures of yourselves or yourself with friends, and you're going to choose from those. So it's important to note they don't have to be attractive photos, so you don't have to have makeup on and be smiling because it's going to be a silhouette. It's important to note that when we take photos for this, silhouettes are best defined when there's a lot of space between the body parts, so they translate well when we take all those details away. So remember that a silhouette is blacked out, okay? So you have a choice here when you pick your photo. And the cool thing about doing it on an iPad is if you can do close-up, you can zoom in, zoom out, you can take multiples and then decide how close or far away you want your silhouette to be. You're going to decide how close you want that to be on your paper. And then, as I was trying to explain before, you have a choice at this point to either eyeball it, essentially try to sketch out what you think the outline would look like yourself, or if you're not too confident with that, we're going to use some tracing paper. So I'm going to bring in some tracing paper, and you don't need too much. We're going to pull it right out of the pad. We're going to put it right over our iPads, and we are going to trace the photo directly from our iPad. So my advice would be try not to touch the iPad too much while you're doing this because it'll move the photo. So you kind of want to lift your pencil up and your hand away as you do it. Remember, it's a silhouette, so we're just tracing the outline. And I'm gonna fast forward this part. So once you are done outlining, it should be something simple like this. Don't forget to get like the in-between areas, all right? And make sure you outline the bottom of your body at the bottom of the photo as well, so we get the whole picture there. Now, like I was trying to say before, the reason why you do more exaggerated poses, like a hand on the hip, is so you can get that definition, so we can really understand the pose. Okay, so you want to make sure, I'm going to stop you before you actually do this and remind you that you do this in pencil. And the reason for that is we're going to be doing a little trick with the tracing paper where we flip our drawing, place it on the photo itself, and trace it through the back. Now, when we do that, it pushes the graphite through, so it almost makes a ghost image on our paper. And I'll speed that up and kind of show you. Okay, so it's hard to see on camera, but the tracing paper pushed that graphite through. So if you find that it's a little too hard to see, you're going to reference your traced image, and you're just going to add those details back in. I didn't think that we could see the thumb very well there. And the hair gets a little lost. So I'm just quickly sketching those back in, but the most of it is dark enough for me to see enough that when I add the white, I won't struggle. So if you find that after you did that kind of trick of tracing on top that it didn't push through enough, it's because when you were actually tracing it, there wasn't enough graphite. So you want to push a little harder before and then flip it and try again. Okay, so think about that pose you really want to do. Think about if you want to do multiple poses, you could always stack photos and write a word with your arms, maybe like love or even like the YMCA, something like that. Or you can do a simple peace pose. You could do a silhouette of your face if you want to do really close up. You can take an action photo. Maybe you could jump and your friend could take a photo of you. Anything you guys can really think of to make it creative and fun and be kind of an expression of yourself. At this point, we're basically ready for paint or colored pencil. We're going to use white first. We're going to outline our silhouette in white. So if you're doing colored pencil, you need that white colored pencil now. And if you're doing paint, you need the white acrylic paint now. Just shaking it up a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to take my time to very carefully with a thin brush. So something like this. And I'm going to outline the entire silhouette, including those spaces in between. One thing I also wanted to note, if you are spelling out words or doing something with your arms like that, where it has to be a certain way, remember that for the tracing paper trick, it's going to be reversed. So you need to kind of keep that in mind if you're going to do something complicated like that. All right, I'm going to speed up the next video to show you how I quickly outline. All right, so now comes the fun part where we kind of add all those crazy, funky, colorful shapes. Remember, we were using geometric and organic shapes. So think of, things like triangles, circles, squares for geometric, and then those weird kind of like strange, undefined blob organic shapes. He used a combination of both in his work. And if you are using paint, we are going to be painting out the shapes in white first, and then if you're using colored pencil, you go straight to color. So the reason we do that is because for painting, we want the paint colors to be as accurate as possible to when they come out of the tube. So we paint it white first, and then we put the color on top. It's almost as if you're painting on white paper. For the colored pencil, that doesn't really work just because of the wax. You don't want white and then colored pencil on top of the white. It just kind of gets messy and smudges. So I'm not gonna film the part where I'm just making random shapes. I'm just gonna do them now and then cut right to it. One thing I also wanted to quickly note before I started on those white shapes was that if you're not confident with drawing directly with paint, that is perfectly fine. So Laurent is basically a master of his craft, and he's used to kind of drawing those random shapes directly with paint. However, we have our pencils, and if you want to plan those out first with pencil and then fill them in after with your paint or colored pencil, that is okay too. It is totally up to you how you want to approach this part of the project. Don't forget to look at his shapes and the colors he uses and things like that as well, just for the ideas. All right, so all done with the white shapes. Remember, we have geometric as well as undefined kind of organic shapes. So we got rectangles, strange blobs. We even have a word written in here, which he did sometimes as well. Now, the next thing we have to do is make sure that it is completely dry before we start with color. We never want to put colored paint on top of white until it's dry, or it mixes on top and makes a pastel color. And we want those kind of bright, punchy colors when we do color next. So before you approach color, make sure it dries, and then make sure again you're looking at the reference of his work so you can kind of approach the color portion how he does it. He doesn't always do blocks of color where it's just one color in each. Sometimes there are patterns inside. So as you can see here, I'm leaving a little bit of white space for the outlines. A lot of his shapes were outlined in white, so we can kind of fudge that a little bit. As well, I'm letting certain shapes dry and then going back on top of them, like with this pink shape with a pattern. Fast forwarding a little bit here, I have all my colors in and all my patterns, and now I'm kind of adding those little squiggles in the black space just to add some more visual interest, as you see in a lot of his work. All right, guys, so we're all done, and now it is your turn. So don't forget, our first step is getting those pictures of ourselves. You can ask for help, you can have a partner, you can take pictures of each other or take selfies, whatever you need to do to get yourself started. So don't forget to be creative, explore lots of new colors and shapes, and have an amazing time with this one. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.